know that this session is really to attempt to address your questions about this EWIG regional lead agency stuff. And we don't have a real formal agenda per se, and are here to answer your questions. And so as those come up, feel free to come off mute and ask them and such. And we're just thrilled that you're here and excited to try and make sense of this for you if there are wonderings that you have. Roxana, anything you would like to add? And I'll stop the music.
No, I just to introduce myself, because I don't know everyone on this call. My name is Roxana Haddad, and I'm the Associate Director at the Computer Science Equity Project at UCLA, and the Project Director for EWIG.
Yeah, good idea, Roxana. I'll introduce myself as well. We're all part of the planning team. So the EWIG Seasons of CS application was a collaboration between UCLA, where Roxana is, the CDE Foundation. So my name's Glennon, and I'm the Director of STEAM Initiatives at the CDE Foundation. And my teammate is Yadira Guerrero, and she is also part of the STEAM Initiatives team. And our two organizations and SCOE co-applied with the model of Summer of CS and expanding to being Seasons of CS. And so that's who we are. And again, I guess at this point, we should probably dive in. So like I said, we don't really have an agenda, but we're here to answer any questions that you all have or wonderings, and feel free to just come off mute, introduce yourself, and ask your questions.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rebekah Bailey. Nice to see some friendly faces. I'm in Mendocino County. One of the questions I have is that within our region, I've reached out to our region GeoLead, and we don't have many identified CS support folks within our different counties. I've been trying to make more of a collaborative application so that we're all on the same page, so to speak. Yep. I also know that from Emily, our CS coordinator, that those particular counties don't have an identified computer science support person either. So I'm thinking that it's, because these folks don't exist/haven't been identified, which is all the more reason to be doing something like this. But I'm wondering how critical it is to build an application with the knowledge and support and input from our other counties within our region.
That's a great question. We are encouraging regions to consider building coalitions and co-applying. It is not mandatory, and as you pointed out, Rebekah, many county offices don't have dedicated CS staff, so you might consider talking to people that are in the STEAM fields or in other content areas within the county offices, and see if there's an inroad there. But it is not mandatory. We are encouraging it. We don't want this to feel like a highly competitive process at all, and we're all working towards the same goal of expanding CS professional learning within the state. At the end of this, when we do select ultimately a lead agency per region, that is so that we can contract directly with one lead agency in each of the regions. But so Rebekah, as an example, if you partnered with another county office to do this, you all could create your own agreement and share some of the funding. But for our purposes, we're going to have 7 regions and 7 contracts with lead agencies, but the funding is not limited to one agency per region. You can share that among yourselves. We just can't contract with 25 county offices to do this.
And it's, it's okay, like Glennon said, that you're not, like, if you can't get people to sign on with you, the whole point of this grant is to build up CS champions throughout our state. So it would, if you have to go this alone, this is an opportunity for you to build that collaboration with the other counties in your region.
Okay, thank you. I've been able to connect with a few folks in the STEAM field, but yeah, not throughout the region. That's encouraging. Thanks.
Yeah. And the other thing I'll mention related to this is that one of the early activities for the selected regional lead agencies is to do a needs assessment from within their region. So it's going to start there and identify, okay, part of it is knowing what the baseline is that we're working with within each of the regions themselves.
Glennon, we have a question in the chat that's from Jason. How much is focused on CS standard implementation versus teacher training focused on supplemental authorization pipeline?
I'll let you take that one, Roxana.
I mean, there's really not, the focus is mostly on in-service training through like the professional development, not so much, though there is stuff for supplemental authorization, that is not the main focus on it. It is more on the CS standard implementation through programs like the things offered by code.org or exploring computer science or APCS principles, just a few examples of those, but there's a lot of different providers that we selected because they have a history of providing good professional development, and they are equity focused as we are. Sarah, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. I kind of have the opposite problem that Rebecca had. So I have a question on the application itself. We have started a coalition here in our region. And I'm wondering, when it comes to contracts and stuff, is it easier in the application just to identify a single lead rather than really calling it a co-lead situation? Because that gets into contractual language. Is it better to just name a single lead and then have, hey, and also we have these counties that have these CS champions? What's the best way to put that into the application?
Great question. I think if I look at, let me pull up the application directly, Mark, and maybe while I do that, Roxana, do you want to address the other question in the chat from Sarah?
Yeah, that's fine. It's a silly question, so that's how it started off. I don't know if it's actually a silly question. On the region map on the website, there seems to be some counties that are in bold. Have these counties already been selected as the lead? No, they have not. That's it. Those are the geo leads. And so that's just the map we had. But the fact that they are the geo lead has no implication as to whether they are the ones that are selected as the lead. They are just your geo lead.
And Mark, to address your question, I'll share screen. In the application on page 2, it asks who's the lead county office, and then if you're partnering with others, it's a separate question, so you can list all the other partner county offices there. When we get to contract, like I said, we're going to contract with a single lead, but in the application, there's room to address. So if you have 4 county offices that you're partnering with, you can list them all in this question here. Who are you partnering with?
Thanks. I'm always hesitant to put in things and then go to page 2.
Oh, sure.
So yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Glenn and Roxana, this is Matt Zukowitz in Santa Barbara. I have a question. This might be getting a little bit too nitty gritty, but I know in the application that the FTE that you're suggesting would be like a 0.5 to 0.75. And I'm wondering, not specifically how you came about that, but more, what would be some representative duties of the regional LEA that would lead to requiring a 0.5 or a 0.75 FTE?
Sure. It's not too nitty gritty, and it's not fully articulated in a lot of the stuff. So appreciate you asking the question. 0.5 to 0.75 is our best estimate at the amount of work that it'll take to implement a regional summer of CS within your region. Our goal for the county offices is to be the lead organizer for a regional implementation of their own summer of CS. So in the summer of 2023, it is our anticipation that we will have 7 summer of CSs, 1 per region, with approximately 100 educators per region participating. And so some of the duties that will be assigned to the regional lead agency and or the coalition of co-applicants will be doing a regional lead, needs assessment for CS professional learning in your area, selecting which professional learning providers will be leading workshops in your summer of CS, recruiting educators to participate in the regional summer of CS, and then executing the regional summer of CS. And so the funding that is available to the county offices is to serve as the organizers of this. Know that we are centralizing the payments to professional learning providers, to educators. We have stipend or funding to offset the cost of their participation. We're centralizing those costs, so we're not expecting you all to take on additional costs. The primary purpose of the funding for the county offices is the recognition that organizing a summer of CS happening takes a fair amount of time and effort and coordination. And so we're trying on our end to minimize the number of contracts and grants, contracts and sub-agreements you all would have with, say, code.org or other professional learning providers. We'll have a centralized contract with them and make that payment directly to the professional learning provider.
Okay, that makes sense. And is the idea that the summer of CS would be similar to the existing summer of CS in that there would be an admin strand, a counselor strand, and teacher strand? Is that kind of the general gist of it?
The general gist, yes. We, based on your needs assessment that you do, you will have flexibility and
Sure.
choice in which workshops you select, how many administrators or counselors you think you would have, how many teachers you think you would have, how many paraprofessionals or other types of roles that might participate, and which workshops you would want to offer in your region. It's built on the model of the existing summer of CS, but we're going to provide flexibility to the regions based on the needs that you identify within your region.
Okay, perfect. That's great. Thanks so much, Glenn.
Can I follow up on that question? Because I have something
Yep.
very, very similar to Matt's question. With the FTE funding, does that also, are we allowed to distribute for administrative assistant work time for organization and that type of stuff? That can all come up out of that as well?
Correct. So it's our best estimate. We're going to give you all one lump sum payment. I mean, we'll pay it quarterly. It's not going to be a one lump sum payment, but you have a single pot of money to work with. How you all assign which staff participate, which county offices are participating, it's our best estimate at overall how much staffing is needed, knowing that, yes, we're going to do some contracting. Yes, we're going to do some of these other things that are not CS, that are business and operations, as an example. So maybe you use 0.05 or 0.1 with an administrative assistant to set up a contract or something of that nature. It's in your court as to how to allocate the time, and whether it's, whether all of, say, 0.5 or 0.75 FTE is with a single county office of education, or you say, I'm co-applying with these others and we're going to split this up and we're going to pay for a portion of a coordinator at XYZ, at ABC, and so on. So it's really in your court, and there's flexibility with that.
I have a thought. Oh, sorry, Karen.
No, it was me. It was Roxana. I thought I was going to answer your question, but do you want to ask it out loud?
Well, I had an add-on. I had another thought because I
Okay.
just wanted to clarify that you were thinking of having the regional summer of CS at this concurrently, so everybody would pick the same week. And in that, I was thinking about myself, who also facilitates ECS, but I also know that there's a limited number of ECS facilitators that are available at any given time, and whether there's capacity to potentially have 7 of those going on.
So great question. We haven't, and my suspicion is that we're not likely going to run all 7 concurrently. I don't think we have capacity in the system to do that. I think it would break us as a planning team to try and do that all at the same week. But we will hopefully have designated weeks, and we can identify with you. Again, you'll have the flexibility to say, we want to do it week 1 of June, or we want to do it week 2 of July. Based on what works for your region, we'll work with you on that. And it's a great capacity constraint that we have. I mean, no capacity constraint is great, but it is a real capacity constraint that we have, is that our professional learning providers can't be in 7 places at the same time. They can probably be in 2 or 3. So if we have some overlap and some regions decide to go on the same week, I think we have capacity to do that. I don't think we have capacity to do 7 in the same week.
Anthony?
Thanks. Sorry, so just to clarify, when you're talking about the regions, we're going by the not our regular 11 region map, but the system of support, that particular map, right? So in the case of LA County, then I would need to contact some of these other county offices, or do I just maybe, like with Matt, I would maybe join his coalition or something like that?
You could, or you could just say, I'm going out on my own. I'm doing my own thing. It's, I mean, you.
Yeah. Well, all of you are aware, I probably wouldn't be able to go out on my own without a lot of help. So that's why I'm kind of like wondering.
Yeah. You just need to have a lead institution, though.
Correct. So Anthony, we're strongly supportive and actually love the idea of regions, county offices within a given region collaborating to make this happen. We think that is the best way to have a regional approach. So we are strongly supportive of that. We just can't contract. There's numerous counties within here. We can't do 100 contracts with all the counties. So we'll have a lead institution, but we're strongly supportive of you working with multiple counties within your region to make this go.
I have a follow-up question regarding the funding again. As I see in the frequently asked questions in this conversation, a lot of it's been around staffing. Is it allowable to use some of the funding for such things as marketing? I'm thinking primarily of marketing for the event.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have a clearly listed allowable uses of funds when we get down to contracting. We're still working with CDE on the very specifics of the subcontracts with the county offices, but I suspect that there'll be some funds allowed for supplies or for materials or whatnot. The pot of funding going to a county office is not going to change. And so how you have flexibility to some extent as to how you use it. We anticipate that the majority of those funds would be needed for coordination and staffing. But you bring up some good points. Like there will be some travel, there will be some other expenses that will need to come out of that $140,000 that is allocated to the region. And so, you know, I don't have an exact number on it, but I wouldn't budget all 140,000 to be staffing. I think you'll need a portion of that to do some travel, to do some supplies, some materials. But again, we're going to centralize most of the heavy costs within this grant to the professional learning providers, the teacher payments to their districts or to the teachers for their participation. So that is in the works.
Great, thank you.
Mark is asking, will there be opportunities for region leads to collaborate and learn from each other? Mark, the idea is those of you who are in our scale research practice partnership is to kind of continue that model in that we would have regular meetings monthly, and we're still determining exactly what those meetings look like, how long they are, and how they're structured. However, it's going to follow this kind of collaborative model that we've operated on using scale. But there is going to be regular meetings.
So yeah, that is part of why there's funding for this, is there is an expectation to participate in our monthly regular meetings. That will be all of the lead agencies. And if they want to bring their coalition members, we're not going to be exclusive. They're going to be welcome to be included. And we're going to try to create a professional learning community of lead agencies that are doing this so that you can learn from each other and help each other address challenges, help us learn how to better do this.
Yeah, and it's really important, like what Glennon said about we're not an exclusive group. Like this is everyone who is a leader in the region is welcome to attend these meetings. Matt Zukowicz asks another silly question. Can you clarify? You mentioned stipends for participating teachers as well as centralized contracts for professional development. Would this come out of the regional lead pot or from the overall EWIG pot?
Great question. So it would come out of the centralized EWIG pot. So the regional lead agency money is yours. We're trying to minimize the amount of work that you all have to do. So if we can do, as a particular example, if we can say professional learning provider A is going to work with these 3 regions, we could do a centralized contract with them to work with those 3 regions and make those payments. And that has nothing to do with the county office money. The county office money and the regional lead agency money is really your all's to organize and recruit and do the things. The payment for participation for educators is also going to be centralized with us. I'll be transparent in the effect that when we put the funding for educators in the grant, it is funding to defray the cost of their participation. We may need districts to help supplement, but we put in a healthy amount, but know that it may not cover every expense for every single teacher. And we're going to work on that, but we had constraints within the budget to do that.
Is there an expectation of face-to-face summer of CS regional lead next year at these regional lead county offices of education?
That's what we're hoping for. While we will remain flexible and adaptable, you all get to do a needs assessment and identify what's realistic or needed in your region. And so we're still in a pandemic and know that things may be different coming by a year from now. But it is our hope that this would be an in-person offering in the summer of 23 if all things were equal. That said, if your region has a particular reason that doing in-person doesn't work for you all, say the geographic spread is too ginormous to make it work, we can have a discussion about that. But in most cases in the map, the regions seem reasonable enough to do something that would be in person.
So Glennon, that sounds like you're kind of open to hybrid options then.
Yes.
Okay.
We would be open to hybrid options. No, from an event planning lens, hybrid is the most difficult to pull off.
Of course.
Well, and then with that, for example, we're in a pretty geographic diverse region, and from one end to the other end, 200 miles or more.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you cover travel costs under the general EWIG, or would that be an expectation of the regional lead for teachers coming face to face?
Yeah. So again, we in the budget allocated costs to defray the costs of educators participating. It is not enough to cover all of the travel and all of a stipend within the budget. So we were hopeful that a district may meet us in the middle, or 70, we bring 75% of the cost and they bring in 25%. We just couldn't budget to cover everyone's travel and everyone's stipend or honorarium or time. And so, that is the best we could do within the application. But yes, centralized funding to support educators participating is in the EWIG project.
Any other silly questions?
Or excellent questions. They've all been excellent.
None of them were
questions.
silly. I don't know. These people, like, they're like prefacing it with silly, and then it turns out to be like this really important question.
It's just still processing everything.
Of course.
This has been very helpful, just to actually to hear it as opposed to just, you know, reading it, to understand better what the vision is and how we can work with our local partners has been super helpful. So appreciate the time that you've taken to meet with us and answer these questions.
Of course. And if you have additional questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Know that we made the application as short as we could. The longest open field response is 2,000 characters. That equates to about 2 paragraphs. So it's not super lengthy. And we went through a very strenuous application process and didn't want to burden you all with that. So we just want to make sure that this is successful, and we're so fortunate to get to partner with you all to be regional leads. We think it'll really help expand CS professional learning, but also student learning throughout the state in a systemic way. And so we just know that we value you, and if there's any questions, no question is too big or too small to reach out to us about. Well, Roxana, Yadira, and I are going to hang out here because we promised to be here for the next 30 minutes. But if you don't have any questions or feel satisfied, don't feel the need to stay. We all have Zoom fatigue, and it's the end of the school year, and I'm sure there's lots of other things out there where you can be spending your time. But know that we're here, and if you want to stick around, you're welcome to. But we're just going to be hanging out.
Maybe they want to hear more of that awesome music you started off with.
Okay, I can do that.
And just rock out while we're waiting for questions.
Thank you again. And it's nice to see some of my friends here. I might be emailing you with questions.
Good to see you, Rebecca.
Have a great rest of the day. Thanks for the opportunity. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Mark. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Yeah, thank you. That was really helpful. You helped answer some of the questions that we had. And then, like you said, I mean, we were kind of joking about them being silly questions, but no, it's helpful. And just the spirit of trying to promote CS education. I mean, I love that idea. The logistics of having 7 summer of CSs in 1 week is pretty interesting. But yeah, I think if we could spread that out and do that, it could work out really well. So thank you both. And Anthony, yeah, let's be in touch. Let's see what we can make happen. That'd be great.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
All right, take care.